Just coming back to this dreadful proposition, I mean, if this is to operate nationally, the Federal Commission could adopt the New South Wales approach and crack down on conduct that in the Commission's assessment, we can't stress this too much for the viewers out there, could affect the honesty or impartiality of public officials. Who is going to go down that road?
Look, the problem, Alan, is a lot of the defenders of this mechanism, the same as in New South Wales, say, look, it all depends on getting the right person to be the commissioner.
That's it.
But I disagree with that. I think that if this is an agency of state, this is an institution, a national institution of state, it needs to be literally foolproof. It needs to have checks and balances in place to qualify the power of this great person who's going to be the moral guardian of society. It's not good enough to simply appoint somebody and give them almost unlimited power without reference to Parliament, without reference to the courts. It's far, far too dangerous and it's too vague.
Yeah, but I mean, everyone goes on about broken promises. They're worried about the tax cuts. You can't break the promise. Before the election, didn't Labor give the impression that the Commission was going to crack down on the worst kind of corruption, serious and systemic? Dreyfus has completely departed from that. That promise is broken. This Commission can pursue serious or systemic corruption, but there'll be no longer a requirement to focus on corruption that's serious and systemic. So everyone's at risk.
Yes, look, this is the problem. Before the election, the qualification of serious and systemic corruption meant that the Commission would focus its efforts on the worst sort of conduct. Now, by changing one word and making it serious or systemic corruption, that means that this Commission will be within its rights to focus on conduct that is not serious. That's not good enough. This is $262 million over 4 years.
I know, and the Greens and the Teals want public hearings. They want the stoning of people in the public place and are concerned, complaining the Albanese government will restrict public hearings. But Chris, the opposite is the case.
That's exactly right, Alan. What they've done is they've ignored the problems that arose in New South Wales and the reform that was put in place in New South Wales. In New South Wales, to hold a public hearing, the Commissioner needs the support of at least one of the other Commissioners. That's not the case with the NAC, the National Commission. The Commissioner can hold a public hearing on his own discretion based on an illusory test, I would say it's illusory, of determining that there are exceptional circumstances and it's in the public interest. And who determines that? The Commissioner. There's no internal
Well, exceptional
or external
circumstances
test.
are not defined. I mean, basically, in lingo that we can understand, this has stripped away, you talked earlier about checks and balances, this has stripped away the checks and balances that seek in New South Wales to prevent the abuse by public hearings. So, but if this bill's enacted, the national body will find it easier to hold public hearings, than its counterpart in New South Wales. So show trials are on the agenda.
That's exactly right. Look, it's as if the federal government has closed its eyes to the lessons that have been learned by the New South Wales government. The New South Wales government introduced reforms some years ago to ensure that the one Commissioner model, handing immense power to one person, doesn't go ahead. They've now got 3 Commissioners and there's a check on the power of the Chief
the check
Commissioner.
is that the reputational harm, the potential for reputational harm in New South Wales must be considered by the Chief Commissioner and at least one of the 2 other Commissioners. There is no restriction in this national scheme. The Ayatollah, the Commissioner, single, he decides. I mean, I think you used that word Ayatollah. I'm borrowing your words. You called him the unchallenged Ayatollah. So he can subject people to public hearings, even if that course of action was opposed by all 3 of the Deputy Commissioners. Where are we? I mean, public submissions close when on this?
They close on Friday.
Is that long enough?
No, it's not. I think it's been 14 days for the entire period. I'm very worried that this is going to be rushed through. There is capacity to improve this bill. It should be properly considered instead of rushed through in such a short period.